To the kitchen, no one was looking.
Yeah, Mom, it's a danger man cooking.
Hello, and welcome to Danger Men Cooking. My name is Gary Schmidt.
And I'm Steven Schlissel.
On Danger Men Cooking, we will be exploring food techniques, variations on recipes, ways to explore different creative ways to cook, and tool implements.
And we're going to be visiting local farms, purveyors, suppliers, manufacturers in the Vermont area.
And so today, our first technique is going to be dealing with eggs. Steven?
Okay. Our eggs today come from Merck Forest and Farmland Center in Rupert, Vermont, where there's a flock of free-range hens. In the winter, they are cage-free hens, and their extraordinary generosity supplied us with these eggs today. But first, we need to find the perfect omelet pan. So Gary has visited Vermont Kitchen Supply here in Manchester, and I believe we have a clip to show you. This unique store in Manchester is filled with an impressive selection of anything you would need for your home or professional kitchen. Gary met with Reed Slatery.
Okay, Reed, so we have before us 3 pans you've selected for us, and as you know, we are doing omelets today. So would you give us a little description of what we have here?
Sure. I brought down 3 samples of pans that you'd like to use. We have an 8-inch, a 10-inch, and a 12-inch fry pan. First pan I'm selecting is a 8-inch aluminum fry pan. It's a restaurant quality pan. You would see this on a daily basis in any restaurant. It has a non-stick surface, excellent for eggs, scrambled, fried, omelets, one-size omelet. Easy to clean, will last you a good long time, but may not last you forever. Second one is a Emerald All-Clad fry pan. It's a 10-inch fry pan, has an oxidized finish to it, has aluminum core, excellent for heating. I do like the angle of the sides of this pan. I think it's very manageable for
little
flipping
shallow,
an omelet.
a little more shallow.
Nice thing about it is you also can finish things in the oven up to 400 degrees. Final pan we have here is a 12-inch stainless steel all-clad fry pan. Top of the line, excellent quality, made in Pennsylvania. A little bit large for some, but maybe quite manageable for others when it comes to an omelet. Also can finish things in the oven up to 400 degrees. All 3 are very easy to clean. Little warm water, a sponge, you should be able to wipe them right out. I would not recommend using any PAM or spray, nonstick spray in the pans. You get a gummy buildup and eventually it'll destroy the pan. You may want to use a little olive oil or butter for seasoning, but that's all you really need to get your omelets underway.
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming down.
We'll put these to work. Okay, here we are back in the studio, back in the range, and we're going to discuss 2 techniques with eggs. Now, they may seem simple, but they're very necessary when you're in the kitchen. The first technique is basic scrambled eggs, and then we're going to do another dish with scrambled eggs with garnish. So let's get started. We're going to use 3 eggs for our scramble. One thing you want to make sure you do when you're scrambling the eggs, whipping the eggs, is to make sure all the egg whites are thoroughly whipped. And look at that beautiful color from those free-range hens. Okay, now we're going to oil the pan. These are non-stick pans, but we're going to put a little oil in it, or you could use butter. We have the eggs. Now, one other thing before we get started, I have here, for seasoning purposes, a mixture of salt and pepper. And this is something you can do at home. It's really convenient, just a mix, keep it in a jar, keep it right by your stove. When you're cooking at home, you don't have to worry about it. You can stay out overnight, in the day, whenever. Okay, so we're going to take a little salt and pepper, just a pinch. Place the eggs in the pan. One thing about eggs, when you're scrambling, let them set first. Let them cook a little bit, don't rush into it. They have to set so you can scramble. Now we're going to lift the egg up that's cooked and let the runny part of the egg flow underneath. We're gently letting all the egg come up and letting it roll underneath the cooked part. Going to scramble it up a little bit. At this point, I'm going to throw in the cheese. Nothing like some cheese eggs for the morning. Flip it over a little bit. You gotta let it cook. If you handle the food too much, it's not going to do its thing. Little mixing up here. And that's it for scrambled eggs. Place it on the plate, and it looks really nice. Not overcooked, not too dry. One thing about scrambled eggs is if you let them sit there too long in the pan, they will become very, very dry. Okay, the next part of the scrambled egg adventure here is scrambling eggs with some garnish. Okay, so when we garnish our scrambled eggs, we're going to use some garlic and some onion. And I just want to show you how to dice an onion. We're going to now peel the ends off the onions and take the first peel off of the onion. And now what we're going to do is we want a small dice. So we're going to cut the onion in half lengthwise. I'm going to place one half of the onion over here. It's going to act as a bookend. So when we dice and slice this half, the slices of onion will not fall apart. So we're going to cut them nicely like this, and you can see that this onion is keeping the one I'm cutting in place. Now once we slice it all the way through, we turn around and do a cross cut. And we have a nice dice. And we're ready to go. One thing I do want to mention, when you're cutting with a knife, keep your fingers curled and let the knuckles guide the blade. So when you're slicing, your knuckles move back, your fingers are curled, so there are no accidents. Okay, and the next thing we're going to show you is how to handle a piece of garlic. Peel the bulb, peel the garlic off. We're going to take the flat of the knife and push it down. It opens up the skin very easily that way. We place it on the board, and you can see that the garlic is already sliced from crushing it down, and we're going to cross cut. And there we have a nice diced garlic. Now, there's two things about garnish. When you cut it, it has to be the right size, and the amount cannot be in too much excess. We have our main food that we're using here are eggs. And we do not want the garnish to overpower the eggs when you're eating it. So we're scrambling up our eggs again. When you're cooking with garnish for the scrambled eggs, we're going to cook that down first so that it's compatible with the eggs when we cook it. So for our garnish here, today we're going to use a little diced onion and a little diced ham. Now, let that cook so that the onion comes to be transparent. And the one thing I'm going to throw in here for the heck of it, which a lot of people don't consider in scrambled eggs, is some garlic. Garlic scrambled eggs. You can't beat it. Alright, so the pan is cooking nicely. You can see that the onions have become translucent, and we're going to now throw the garnish in, the eggs in with the garnish. And we're going to take our seasoning, salt and pepper, a little sprinkle here. We're letting the eggs set like we did before. Fold up and then let the eggs run under. The reason I like to do it this way is so that the garnish becomes incorporated with the egg really well. Sometimes if you do not let it flow underneath, a lot of times the garnish can all go to one side, but here the garnish is infused evenly. And we take a little light turning with the egg. Gotta let it sit, do its thing. And there we go, a little scrambled eggs with garnish. Now we're gonna move on to making an omelet. And you'll see the similarity between the two of those. Before we get into that, I wanna show you this cheese that we're gonna use in our omelet. This is from Consider Bardwell Farms in West Paulet. And we're going to take a look at what they're doing out there now.
The Danger Men cooking crew visited Consider Bardwell Farm in West Paulet, Vermont. We knew we would find award-winning world-class cheeses, but we soon learned about their commitment to sustainable local agriculture and traditional farming methods. We met with Peter Dixon, the big cheese.
There's really only 4 things we need to make cheese. There's the milk, there's the bacterial cultures, there's the rennet, which is an enzyme that coagulates the milk into a big curd that we can then cut to whatever size we want. Today we're going to cut it very, very small to make a hard cheese, but to make our Dorset cheese, which is soft, we cut it into big pieces. And then the 4th ingredient is the salt, because you're not going to get flavor and you're not going to continue with the preservation process if you don't use salt. And so today I added 4 different types of bacteria to make this cheese out of 4 different pouches that I keep in the freezer. And we buy those from a laboratory. They're ready-made, ready to use. It's very easy, you just put them in. But the challenging part and the part of experience is to know which ones to use to make which cheese. And so the cheeses that I developed here are really, they have the names like Paulet and Rupert and Meadowy and Manchester, and they're not supposed to be like any other kind of cheese. They're supposed to be their own unique cheese. So therefore it was a challenge, for me to select the different bacteria I would want to create a hard Alpine style cheese, but not have it be like Gruyere or something else.
And for the people watching this isn't milk you're getting from the supermarket.
Oh.
We're getting milk from specific farms.
And it's produced in a specific way because I'm trying to make a hard Alpine style cheese, which means that this cheese is not very acidic. And so we want to make sure that this milk is produced where the feed is grass. Located this farm, Jersey Girls,
Right.
and started to buy a little milk from Lisa Kamen, who owns it. And it's like a little gold mine because for some reason this dairy farmer chose not to adopt the conventions of our modern era. So this milk, because the feed is grass with a little bit of grain, it doesn't have the same kind of bacteriology as milk that's produced from silage, from like corn silage or fermented hay. And therefore I can make cheeses like this from it because I won't get the same bacteria. And what I want is not to have bacteria that will produce lots of carbon dioxide in the cave. And that's what happens, that's the risk of using silage. Because of the concern of some of our customers, one of the questions you get asked most commonly is what kind of rennet do you use? A type of vegetarian that doesn't, they're not going to buy cheese if an animal was harmed. From out of this, keep checking this here. Out of this curd, you're going to be a big separation, a lot of whey. You can see what it looks like, greenish. And then this curd cake will be amassed in the back part of the vat and pressed. And out of that big cake, I'll cut out a big piece and I'll put it in there, and that'll be a wheel of cheese.
And those cheese molds you have over there look very unique. They look,
They're made in Holland. They're made from teak wood, and they have a beautiful, what we call a biofilm, like of mineralized,
Right.
you know, whey on here, and it's rich with bacteria as well, so it adds to the fermentation and to the unique flavor of the Rupert cheese. If I were to make the Rupert in a plastic mold or a stainless steel mold, it wouldn't
Totally
taste the same.
different, yeah.
We have the Manchester, which is again, it's another Tome style cheese.
Why don't we cut this open and
Okay.
let's tell us
Well,
what we have here.
This is a cheese we make called Manchester, and it's made from goat milk.
Right.
Most of the batches of this cheese have been made from milk that's produced here at the farm, which are Oberhausley goats, and milk from the Orchard Nubian farm,
Uh-huh.
which is Nubian milk. And we like the blend of the two together because the Nubian milk is much more fatty,
Uh-huh.
and we get that fatty note in the flavor of this cheese with the Nubian milk.
Right. And
when it's our milk alone, we get different flavor notes.
Right.
And the texture of the Tome, as you'll see, is supposed to be what cheesemakers call open. It means they're supposed to have some openings in the paste, which is the portion of the cheese inside this protective barrier, which we call the rind. And when we look at this, we see all these openings.
Right.
Some of them are produced because the curds weren't particularly knit tightly together, but most of them are produced from gas. This batch is a blended. When we make this cheese from just our milk, we tend to get more like cookie spice flavors,
Uh-huh.
cinnamon, nutmeg, sometimes citrus. But this you should definitely taste the butteriness. And you know, I like to eat the rind, but you can eat the paste
yeah,
to
well,
start
you're
out
right.
if you want. And the rind is always the strongest part of the cheese.
That's delicious.
The Paulette is the one we use for grilled cheese
Right.
sandwiches right here in the cafe. So that's because it's a milder cheese.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't have the strength
Right.
of flavor as this one. It's really great for just straight grilled cheese
Uh-huh,
sandwiches. It's also good to use in a fondue where you're going to put something strong in,
Right.
like the Dorset, for example. You can make a fondue with some Dorset and some Paulette together. I've done that at home.
Yeah.
Rupert, which is the cheese I'm making today, the big, hard Alpine-style cheese that's aged for a year.
Uh-huh.
And there you can think fondue.
Right.
You can think,
Right,
you know,
right.
a lot of ways of using that with more cheesy dishes. The Equinox would be the ideal grating cheese because it's going to have a sharpness that this cheese doesn't have. And so if you're thinking pasta, maybe that's the better one
Right.
to do, would be the Equinox.
Okay, now we're going to get into the omelet. And again, we're going to use 3 eggs. Some people have a hard time cracking eggs with one hand. What you got to do is put that on the edge of the bowl, open up with your 2 fingers, kind of like Star Trek, whatever that's like, and just let it drop in the bowl. We're going to whip the eggs. Now, we're going to make, for the first omelet, just a plain cheese omelet. We have the oil in the pan. We're going to throw in the eggs. And again, we have our salt and pepper mix. You can see how handy this comes in. And the egg is cooking nicely. We're going to do the same technique as we did with the scrambled eggs. We're going to lift up the egg, let the wet part flow underneath, and this helps create a little more of a souffle effect. Again, we're going to get all of that egg under there. And as you can see, there's a lot of moisture on the top. And now we're going to throw in the cheese. And this omelet, we're going to do a single fold. The next omelet, we'll do a double fold. So all we have to do is get the spatula under there and flip it over. And you can see you have the perfect omelet right there. This will take a moment to cook. If you wish, you can flip it over to reheat on both sides. and it won't take more than a minute, and we're all set. Okay, we're going to now make our final omelet, and that's going to have some garnish in it, and we're going to then cook some Swiss chard to accompany the omelet. But Stephen wants to tell us about the vegetables today.
Okay, well, as you know, Gary, I like to eat local and fresh veggies, but here in February that's not possible. So today's Swiss chard, which is very beautiful, came from Nature's Market in Manchester. John was very nice to provide us with not only some garlic and onion, some beautiful shiitake mushrooms, and the chard. And we're going to let you do your thing.
We're going to now do the same procedure as the previous omelet. Whip them up. While we're whipping, we're going to throw in some garnish, some shiitake mushroom slices, some onion, and some garlic. Can't forget the garlic. Now while that's going, I'm going to get prepared here for the Swiss chard, again with some onions and some garlic. The garnish for the omelet is basically ready. Make sure we get those whites whipped up and into the pan. Gonna keep this one going, keep an eye on that. We don't want it to burn. Salt and pepper, again, comes in handy. We're going to do the same thing we did with the previous omelet. It has cooked underneath. We're going to put the spatula underneath and let the egg run under the cooked part, again, helping to create a little more of a fluffiness. Eggs expand as they cook, so we want to help that move along in that direction. And then we're going to finally throw in some cheese. And now the reason I like to cook the garnish first in the pan is so you can see that it is infused thoroughly with the egg. Now this time we're going to do a double fold, as we did the first time was just a single fold. So this is going to be folded like a piece of paper. 3 folds. We put half of it over like that. Then we rotate the rest of the omelet over, and you can see we come up with a very nice looking omelet. Now, Swiss chard. While the onions are going, Swiss chard, I prefer when I'm cooking Swiss chard to take some of the ribbing out. It does get a little tough. You can use this in the stock or chop it up and throw it in a little salad. And we're going now just to cross-cut it. Going to throw it into the pan with the onions and the garlic, and you can see that our omelet here is just about ready. Going to put that on a plate. And we'll get that ready for the chard. I'm going to throw in a little bit more oil in here. Olive oil, you can't go wrong. Olive oil and garlic. And again, one more time, going to take the salt and pepper, toss this around nicely. And there we go. It doesn't take long. Swiss chard cooks similar in nature to spinach. It cooks down very fast, and you don't want to overcook it. So we're going to place it on the plate with our omelet. And there we are.
Now, Gary, now for my favorite part of the show.
Oh, what's that, Steve? We're going to clean up or something like that.
No eating your delicious dinner, but first we have to go and find the perfect wine to have with this delicious meal. And we're gone to Kamalo's Wine and Antiques in Manchester to find the perfect beverage.
Here we found a dazzling array of small production fine wines, all personally selected by Barbara. Now that's a tough job.
Okay, so here we are at Barbara Kamalo's Fine Wine and Antique Shop in Manchester. And Barbara, as you know, for our first show, we're cooking some omelets with considered Bardwell cheese, the Manchester line. And so you've had that, and so I see you've picked out something to suggest to us.
Yes, I have. Consider Bardwell cheese is a phenomenal production of small crafted cheese. They sell some of their cheeses to Per Se, Thomas Keller's restaurant in New York City. You'll see them at farmers markets, very small little places do you get to find them.
Right.
But the Manchester cheese has a little bit of nuttiness to it. So what I thought would go perfectly would be the Schramsberg Blanc de Blanc. It has a little nutty yeastiness to it.
Right.
Schramsberg's one of the oldest wineries in the United States. They've been around since the 1880s. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote about them. In the 1960s, they revamped the production, and Nixon toasted China
Right.
when he was there with the Schramsberg line. So they make some delicious, delicious wines. This is a vintage, 2006. And I think it would go perfectly with your omelet.
Yes, anything sparkling.
Yes, anything
Right.
sparkling with all foods.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We're back here with this fine champagne from Kamala's, Gary, and we're going to
All right.
open it up and pour it.
Sounds good to me.
We're going to try not to damage any of these camera lenses. So my technique is to slowly twist it out, and oh,
Opa.
I love that. Okay, Gary, so we're going to try this little bit of the grape here today.
Looks good. Looks very good. Cheers.
To your fine cooking.
So before we go, we would like to thank our sponsors.
So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.
Keep on cooking.
So today, Gary, we answered an age-old question.
What's that, Steve?
Why, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
I hope you didn't lay an egg with that one.
Well, we did put all our eggs in one basket.
Where'd you poach that joke from?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was a little fried when I wrote it.
It sounds like your thoughts were a bit scrambled.
I'm letting you go on that one.
I hope I don't wind up with egg on my face.
Well, I will say that nobody can beat your eggs.
Well, I guess the yolk's on me.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
To the kitchen, no one was looking. Look out, Mama, it's a danger man cooking.